Hello, how are you, man?
Hey. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
Um, I guess we'll wait a wee bit
Yeah. Sure, sure,
just to
sure.
see if anybody joins.
Yeah, sure. How are
So,
you doing?
yeah, of course. So where are you teaching?
So I am teaching right now at a little school in southern Indiana, Vincennes University. It's right on the border of Illinois and Indiana on the southern side, about an hour north of Evansville. So pretty much the edge of the state. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm
Yeah.
really that's congratulations. That's so awesome. When
Well, I
did
mean,
you finish up?
I graduated in 2019. I finished up
Okay.
there, and I've actually been working there since 2017, I think. I've been just teaching piano lessons there for a couple years before they offered me a better contract with classes, and so now I'm teaching. I'm teaching music theory, teaching aural skills, world music, and music appreciation, and still piano lessons. So, bunch of stuff.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So is it really cold there?
Yes, and that was part of the my wanting to do it this weekend because it was a very crazy week with the snow, especially. We had I still live in Bloomington also, which is an hour and a half away from Vincennes.
Got it.
So I do quite a bit of commuting to go teach, and school was being switched over to virtual stuff because of the snow days and all that. So there was a bunch of added chaos with switching to virtual school, and it was a lot. And I also had two recitals this week, so it was a busy week for me. So thanks for doing it this weekend with me.
Yeah, of course, of course. Um, let's go ahead and get started. So
Sure.
what was the biggest lesson that you took from 2020?
Uh, well, 2020 was awful for everybody for many reasons, of course. Do you mean like professionally? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Uh,
so let's take it professionally first and then
okay.
personally second.
I think just the need to be able to adapt to what you're doing to the situation is the biggest lesson, and I'm sure everyone's going to agree with that. I mean, I've switched all my private students right now. They're all virtual. I do Zoom and FaceTime lessons now for all my private students. And being able to switch back and forth my classes between in person and virtual has been quite the challenge. But I think it's been good long term. I think I'm starting to plan in a way that I can do it either way. So no matter if it's going to be in person or virtual, I can do it one way or the other. Just being able to adapt on the fly is probably the biggest professional thing that I've had to adjust with. Um, yeah, I'll go with that. That sounds good.
Yeah, so like going back and forth between virtual and in-person lessons. Did before COVID, were you teaching online or were you teaching
Actually,
just in
not at
person?
all. No, I was doing everything in person, so I've had to switch everything over to virtual. And actually, it worked better than I expected. There's obviously so many things we can't do online that we can try our best to do. But you can get a lot. You can get a lot done if you know what you're listening to when you're teaching. And I think, and it's it's been a challenge. It's still not ideal, of course. But especially with I think younger students, it's fine. It's fine. To be honest, a lot of stuff you can do just fine over the phone, over the
Hmm.
computer. But with more advanced students, it's very tricky. And actually, I had this experience this week too. Just the idea of playing in a bigger space, because I feel like everyone's been trapped in their bedrooms or their practice rooms, wherever practicing. Like so, this week, the other night, I played in a hall for the first time in a year. It felt like forever. And all of a sudden, I had to instantly adapt. I was like, "Oh my god, I have all this sound in the space now." It was brilliant. It was, and I was like, "Oh, I missed this so much." It was,
Hmm.
but that's something you can't really work on. You can't really work on space and the sound in space and things like that. That's tough to do over the phone. But it's something that I had to adapt with on the fly this week before this concert we did. But it was nice to be back on stage this week. So,
Yeah,
but
no, that's big. That's big. I think a lot of people are going through that. So that's
yeah.
um yeah, that's good. Um so let's take it personally if you don't mind. What was the biggest lesson you learned personally from 2020?
Well, let's see. I think maintaining friendships is tricky. And it can be especially tricky when everyone's locked inside and you're not supposed to see each other. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of friends who I was much closer to before COVID. Unfortunately, like we just kind of drifted apart. Like I kind of learned that relationships need nourishment, and it's a two-way street, and everyone's got to contribute. Otherwise, things can fall apart, unfortunately. And that happens, and that's okay. It's fine. Um, uh, I think a little bit of that I've learned, kind of how to take care of the people you care about and hope they take care of you and that sort of thing. But relationships are tough to maintain. I actually had a lot of friends that I was doing a lot of like Zoom get-togethers and like weekly like Zoom drink dates and things like that with a bunch of people, with like groups of friends at the beginning, and that stuff started just to fall apart and stopped happening, and things people drift apart, and that's fine, and it's okay. You can always find each other again. But just how to treat the people you care about. I think I learned a little bit more about that.
That makes sense. No. For the people that don't know you, can you give us kind of like a brief introduction of like who you are,
Yeah.
your skill set, etc.?
Sure. So my name is Sean Cavanaugh. I am a pianist and music teacher. I'm from Florida, like you. We share the same undergrad teacher. I went to Florida State, where I studied with Gainsford for my undergrad, before I moved up to Indiana, to IU, to do a master's and a doctorate in piano. So
Yeah,
I do a lot of everything. I like to play chamber music quite a bit, and solo rep, of course. Yeah, that's me. I teach a bunch of music classes now.
Yeah, well, congrats on the doctorate as well, and congrats on professorship as well. So
Thanks.
I wanted to take the next question to be, what are you scared of now for your career?
I
know it's a tough one.
Let's see. Well, there aren't many jobs out there. Let's see. I haven't really thought about this a whole lot. I try not to worry about that sort of thing. I'm not worried in the sense that I'm always going to be playing. I'm always going to find outlets to play and perform and teach and do these things. I'm more scared of that audiences will dry up. So when the demand for classical music goes away, that's when I start to actually kind of worry. But I mean, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. So, but also, of course, just career things. There aren't too many jobs out there these days. I know a lot of my friends in the orchestra world are really hurting, and gig musicians are really hurting really bad because of COVID right now, and that's awful. So I feel for them, and that's terrible. So I'm scared for them and scared for me for those sorts of things as well. But I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And see where it goes.
Yeah. No. That's great. I think, we're all kind of going through difficult, times right now. I was going to ask you, on that note, do you see classical music as declining in listenership and viewership?
Well, I wouldn't consider myself an expert on this at all.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on where you are, I suppose. In certain places, it depends on the programs that are being created by orchestra programs, by teachers, by all sorts of things. I like to think it's not. I hope it's not. But
yeah, same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So no, because it's just interesting to hear, what other people are thinking and learning on that topic as well. If so how would you sort of build from ground up?
You actually cut out there for a second. Sorry, I missed the question. You froze for a second.
Okay. So you're 12 years old, and I'm going to take away all your skills and knowledge. How are you going to build yourself back up?
I actually thought this was a fun question because I actually didn't start playing until I was 11, so pretty close to 12, I guess. But well, let's see. I think it's really important to, I think, find inspiration wherever you can. I think that's one of the things that pushed me to practice so much and work so hard when I was younger. So I would try to find some inspiration somewhere, whether it be through a person or through recordings or through going to concerts, whatever. Um, and then just a lot of hard work.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's good. So, for people that are looking to get into taking music seriously, taking classical music seriously, what are some steps that you would give somebody who's, pre-college to grow and improve in that area?
Yeah, sure. I actually have quite a few high school students that are actually auditioning for college and things like that right now, so that's perfect. I think first things first, you've got to find yourself someone who can help you along the way. A good teacher who you're comfortable with personally and professionally with, where you feel like you can make progress with. That's really important to have that kind of relationship, I think. And yeah, and just hard work. I guess it's just a lot of work, man. You just got to put in the time and do good work and take it as far as you want. But I would say get yourself a good teacher who can help you and guide you with whatever your goals are personally. Someone whose goals they can help you with directly.
And so for people like that, might be looking for a teacher, what do you recommend, when you're searching for a teacher? What kind of qualities should somebody be looking for?
I think the relationship you have with them has to be really important. Especially when I was applying for grad school programs, I wanted to have a relationship with a teacher where I could be candid with them. I was at the point, especially in my doctorate, when I was when I was about to be applying for doctoral programs, I wanted someone who I could challenge and could challenge me. So I wanted someone who I could, if they said play it this way, I wanted to be able to say, well, I kind of like to play it this way, and kind of push back a little bit. And I think that's important, especially with older students, to have that kind of relationship with them so that they can actually grow independently. Because, they do, ideally. You want to, I think, teach students to become independent on their own. And especially a late stage student, you want someone to have their own ideas and their own, you want them to bring something to the table. So if you just tell them how to do it all the time, I don't think that's a good strategy either. But I would say look for someone who you could have a relationship with, where you could bounce ideas off each other and work collaboratively on programs together. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, at least, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. So next question is kind of a fun one too. So if you could sit down with anybody alive or deceased, who would you choose to have a conversation with?
Okay, so I didn't think about this. I would, and it's going to sound cheesy, but I would sit down with my teacher for my doctorate. She passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
No, that's okay. It's fine. But she, and not for just like professional reasons, like I want to pick her brain about music and things like that. Of course, that happens too, but just because she was so much fun. And we probably wouldn't be drinking coffee either. She would have a glass of red wine, and she would have it in a little spliff, like the little bottles, you get at the restaurants. And she would have a second glass of just ice, and she'd have two glasses, one with ice, one empty, and then this bottle. And if the server would ever bring it to her, and it was already open, she'd be very upset because she wanted to open it herself. She was very particular about this. And so she would pour the wine and then take little individual ice cubes and put it into the glass, however many she wanted. So she was a lot of fun. She was very quirky like that. But I miss her dearly. But she was a ton of fun and a great mentor to me. So I would love to have a chance to have coffee with her again.
So, okay. Yeah. So what what sort of things would you talk about besides, I mean, you said life, music, but what specifically would you ask?
Oh, we would just joke around the whole time. It'd be a blast. She had the best stories. She never ran out of good stories. She always threw the best parties. Just a ton of fun. It's hard to say what we talk about. Anything. We could talk about anything, and it was a blast, no matter what we were talking about. So sorry, I can't be more specific there. But,
no, it's good. It's good.
But that's the kind of relationship that I liked. I liked that about her, that we could talk about anything, and there really wasn't much we didn't talk about. Although this was funny. She was this was a funny story. So she was a pretty conservative woman, and how can I word this lightly? And she there was one time in one of my lessons towards the end of April. This was, I think, the first year of my master's, or maybe my second year of my master's, and it started snowing outside the window, and I was in the middle of playing I think I was playing like a Tchaikovsky concerto or something like that, and she just interrupts me, and she's like, "Ha! Global warming! Ha! It's snowing in April."
Oh no!
And that was pretty fun. So anyway.
Wow.
Anyway, so we had a good relationship. It was fun.
That's great. Yeah. So next question is, I kind of want to pick your brain about what you would say you learned the most of, in terms of like from FSU and then from Indiana. So from FSU, what would you say is your biggest takeaway?
Well, I love Reed. He's a wonderful, incredible pianist, great teacher and mentor. And I needed that. I needed the kick in the butt. And I got it from him, and it was great. He basically built my piano technique and a lot of my early ideas of interpreting things. And yeah, I owe him a lot. It was incredible. But he really laid the foundation that I really got to kind of go crazy with in my grad studies when I went and studied with Dr. Shaw, who didn't necessarily teach music. She didn't teach it one specific way. So there would be several people playing the same pieces at once sometimes, and everyone would be playing it totally differently. And they were all great. It was fantastic. And I could challenge her ideas with my own, and she would always offer her many ideas as like an option, like take this option or leave it. Like this is an idea, you can use it or not use it, it's up to you. But this is why I use it, and it works for me. So that sort of thing. So I really started to develop, I think, my own ability to look at big picture things and really start to interpret things more individually in my grad studies, I think, because of her.
No, that makes sense. So then you spent how many years at Indiana? 2 masters plus
doctorates, a very long time. I was there for plus the masters, I think 7 years. So 5 for the doctorate, 2 for the masters, I think.
What would you say? I mean, what would you say was your biggest takeaway from Indiana, if you had to like boil it down to one thing?
I feel like I grew as an individual much more during my grad studies, professionally and personally. But I think I had just so much more performing experiences, like opportunities to perform here at IU, that really made me comfortable on stage, and I feel like I'm just really excited to go perform now. And that's something I was nervous of my entire undergrad all the time, and now I'm just very excited about it. And I think it's because I had so many opportunities to perform here, and just learn a ton of rep while I was here as well. Sorry, I can't really boil it down to one thing. I would just say I grew quite a bit in many different directions during my grad studies here. Yeah, for the better. Definitely for the better.
No, that's good. That's good. It's good. I know asking a question like that, there's never one thing, there's always multiple. Yeah. So how would you describe practicing?
So People have used this one before, and I think it's a really good analogy. For me, practicing is that's the laboratory, where that's where things kind of, you get to experiment, you get to play around with ideas, you get to try things different ways until you settle on things that you like and how you want to do it. So for me, practicing is very much an intensive, focused lab, really. I really think of it like a lab. Like I'm just playing around with ideas, I'm trying different fingering, I'm trying different shadings, different dynamics, everything. I'm trying every different kind of touch I can for whatever kind of passage I'm working on. And I'm deciding on what I want to do. So it's a decision-making process that feels like I'm experimenting the whole time.
And then, so that's kind of the lab, right? How is performing different than that for you?
Well, that's when you just get to have fun. Then you just play the damn thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is a blast, which is fun. Of course, you do a little bit of that in the lab too. Of course, you have to do dry runs and practice performances and things like that all over the place. It's important to do that. But performing is, I feel like when I'm performing, I'm much more in tune with the space and the people in the room, and it's more like an environmental aspect is there that isn't necessarily there when I'm practicing sometimes. I mean, I could include it if I like, but it's hard to do that when you're in a little practice room or when you're like just in my apartment with a piano in here. Yeah, performing feels like I'm trying to make a connection with like an audience and try to communicate this music however I've decided it should go.
Got it. So last question, and then I want to take questions from the audience if they have any. That would be interesting. if you're up to it, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So what's next for you? Like, what are your goals?
Well, I want to find more practice time, as always. If I could give you any advice, it would be practice now, because you won't have practice time later. Practice like you won't have practice time later, because you probably won't have practice time later. And I cherish every minute I have to practice. It's really difficult to find time to practice. And so I'm looking forward to the summer, learning a few programs, getting some stuff together for next year. That'll be fun. I'll be looking forward to future projects. My violinist friend and I, a good friend of mine here in Indiana, we're almost done playing all the Beethoven violin sonatas. We just did the 6th, 7th, and 8th this week, and we've got the last two we're going to probably do either this summer or this fall coming up. So I'm going to finish learning that program. We're going to play that around some places in Indiana and possibly elsewhere. We'll see what we can do, but of course with COVID, it's really tough to perform anywhere these days. So we've done some like live stream things and stuff like that, which is great. So I expect we'll do some of that. I'd like to learn a solo program, do some recitals in the fall. But that's immediate. In future, like more long term, I'm hoping to keep teaching my students. I really enjoy all my students, seeing how many more students I can teach if I can fit them in there. And yeah, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. It's going well.
Good. Okay, let's take questions. If anybody in the audience has any questions for Sean, for Dr. Cavanaugh, I should say.
Sure. You can call me Sean. That's fine.
Yeah, for any questions, and then you can just type them in the chat, and he will get to them.
Sure.
Okay, there's one right there. You see
what is your biggest achievement for you in every practice session you do? Well, let's see. That's a little general. If I want to be more specific, I would say I usually go into a practice session with a specific goal in mind. Like I'm there to practice this thing. Yeah, you got a cool name too, by the way, man. Nice job.
Sean. Oh my.
I usually go into a practice session with a specific goal in mind. Like I'm going to work on this passage and I'm going to work on it this way to try to achieve this goal. So I always have a sort of goal in mind. So whenever I achieve that goal, I would say that would be my biggest achievement for that practice session, for me. But it varies. It's hard to say. Yeah, I'll leave it with that. I think that's a good way to put it. I usually go into a session with specific goals in mind, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good. Let's take one more question. One more.
How many pieces to work on at once is too many? Well, that's as many as you can handle, I think. Well, it's interesting. I think, especially in my doctorate, I was working on usually, I mean, so many things at once. I always usually had a solo program in the works, but I also had chamber pieces that were going in and out all the time. And so I would be constantly moving around. I had some things that I'd be playing for a long time, and then it was like Tetris, like rearranging my practice schedules, like the things I needed to work on that day. So I would say as much as you can handle and do well, because you don't want to overdo it. And I've been there before too, and you don't want to do it. I worked also as a staff accompanist for a couple of years where I played for about 20 instrumentalists, and it was not fun, and it's a lot. And so it's a certain kind of skill to be able to handle that and do it well. If you can do it, that's great. But I wouldn't overdo it. I would just stick with what you feel that you can do well. So that's going to be different from person to person. So here's another one. How do you help? Yeah, sure. How do you help undergrads deal with performance anxiety? The best thing for me is to just practice performing. And that's a hard thing to do, but you have to put yourself out there and get used to doing it. I used to hate it. I was nervous every time I walked in front of anybody, but I've gotten much better with it now. I actually, with some of my undergrads, I'll have them perform usually like the lower stakes at first, and then higher stakes as it gets closer to recital time. So I'll have them do just like private performances outside of like a studio class thing for like friends and family, gradually work it up, play it like something like a church situation or somewhere like that, or something a little bigger. And you just get used to playing the same program over and over. The first time you play a program, for me at least, it never goes exactly the way you want it to go. There's always something that you're like, that's never happened before. How did that happen? That always happens. So I think it's important to just do it so many times, just get really comfortable with it until you feel free to do and express the way that you really want to express things. So I myself and with my students, I have them perform many times just to help prepare.
All right, you want to take the last question?
Sure. We got another Sean question here. How do you prioritize your practice session if you have a lot too close to performance? Well, I try to not have too many things right too close to a performance. It's tricky. You kind of have to do triage a little bit there. I could definitely say I did a lot of that during my time as a staff accompanist. But how do you prioritize your practice? Let me read that again. Sorry. How do you prioritize your practice session if you have a lot too close to performance? Got it. Okay, got it. Too close to the performance. Okay. Well, you have to just pick the spots that you know you need to work on and just prioritize those. And sometimes you just have to kind of trust in the work that you've done before. A lot of performing is how was I saying? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. A lot of performing is trusting the work that you do in the practice room. And so you have to trust the work that you've done has been good and have confidence that it's been good before you go on stage, because you want to feel confident walking on stage. You don't want to feel you don't want to not trust the work you've done. So yes. Ovian, do you have any particular strategies for learning accompanying rep quickly and efficiently? Well, for concertos, you can leave lots of stuff out. You can cheat a little bit with concertos. I would just be practicing for hours every day, and I would have a list of things I needed to get done that day, and I wouldn't go home until I got them done. And eventually I got quicker at doing it. But I can't claim to be the best at it still, but I've done it, and it's fine. But I don't like doing it. But learning quickly is never easy. But I think, at least for me, at least having a really good background in theory and that sort of stuff has been really helpful for learning music quickly. So yeah, I don't have a great one. I would just practice all the time.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And so last question: how can people find you on social media? How can they contact you?
Sure. This is my Instagram. I'm not super active, but I'll post things usually when I do concerts and things like that. So yeah, you can contact me here. This is my Instagram. It's Sean Cavanaugh without the UGH at the end. Yeah, Sean Cavanaugh. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube. Look me up. Sure, if you want. If not, yeah. My website is SeanCavanaughPiano.com. So there's that too.
Perfect.
Little plug for you.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been
Yeah,
fun.
of course.
And it's good to see you. By the way, also I should ask you, how are you doing? How's Florida State?
It's going well. It's cold here.
Yeah. Well, it's a little colder here, I'll tell you that.
It's in the 50s here, and anything below 70 is.
Yeah.
It's
no,
cold.
So my parents are in Fort Lauderdale, down in the south, and I talked to them the other night, and they were like, "Oh, it's getting into the 50s this week." I'm like, "You guys, it hasn't been above freezing here in weeks." and they were like, "Yeah, but it's going up to 80 again, so we're gonna be fine." And I just get furious.
Yeah, no, it's chilly right now, but no, things are going well. I'm just practicing for my lecture recital in
great.
April.
What are you working on? What's your program? What's your lecture?
So it's going to be on ballades with narratives, like specific narratives based. Chopin's second ballade, Brahms' first ballade, and the Liszt second ballade. So it's a lot.
Nice. Great pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot,
Those
but I'm
great.
excited.
No, I've played all those. Those are all good pieces.
They're great pieces. Studying with Dr. Gainsford has been really great. I'm learning a lot. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to give him my best. I haven't seen him in a while. I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, I'll let him know. I'll let him know you said hi. And yeah, thanks again, Sean. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Brad.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah.